I want to introduce Corrina. And hi, Corrina.
Hi, Mykal.
Welcome, welcome. And so Corrina and I were introduced because she was really interested in having a QHHT session, which I facilitate. We have really learned and drawn a lot of information from one another. So I value the interaction of that. All right. So Corrina, what would you like to share about how you found yourself here?
Wow. Pretty much I found myself here like I find myself everywhere. It's some nudges to go in a direction and meet a person and to watch it evolve, and then it turns into something beautiful that you never had any idea that you needed in your life. And it's always at the right moment. I mean, when I called you yesterday, for example, and we talked about this, I was in fear, which is not like me. And we talked about that too. I'm not a fearful person. I'm usually someone that can look at the world for what it is and just go, okay, that sounds horrible, but I'm not going to put my emotions there. I'm just going to observe. And that was actually advice that I got from you some time ago that I've really kind of fine-tuned within myself. And so it really threw me off that I was feeling such an intense emotions and just fear. And I'm not a crier. I cried so much, and so it kind of course in my mind I'm like, I gotta talk to somebody. And
Right.
So I call you because I really do trust your judgment, and where is this coming from? Is it valid to fear? Are we walking on this tightrope of apocalyptic doomsday, or like this is it, we've made it, and we're just watching it unravel now? I mean, there's so many questions to be had and to want to have answered.
Right.
And that's what brought me here.
All right, so let's get down to it. So our purpose today is Corrina is going to be asking questions, and these are questions for everybody. They may have be coming from her, and but the reality is they're questions that everyone I'm hearing is asking. And I say that because I know what a lot of her questions were yesterday, and she said she's going to make a list of them for me today, or she was going to ask a list, and she even offered to send me the list. And I was like, no, I don't want to see the list because I don't want to get my brain involved in answering these questions. I really want to be in the moment of being in the energy of the ascended masters and the angels and answering it in a way that is the most benefit for everyone without too much left brain thinking process involved. So Corrina, it's up to you now to ask questions. And I haven't put any, I don't even think we asked a subject. So Corrina, tell us what a subject is today.
Well, I think the subject that we should really focus on is the here and the now and what's going on. And that was the theme of our conversation yesterday is, and I think we're all questioning so many things. So the first thing that I want to ask, and I'm hoping based on the meditation you did earlier, I'm hoping that maybe we can even get some better answers, which yesterday's answers were great. But, what we are experiencing right now, because the world seems very divided from what I can tell, because, and I think we all kind of, we pay attention to what's going on, but then we also have our kind of, extended circle, because it's usually not people close to us that that we follow, and we see what they're going through, and those are our sort of like soul people. And I'm seeing such a divide here because in the 3D world it's very fear-based, and it's very, oh my gosh, this is the apocalypse and it's the end, and oh my god, we're all gonna die and it's horrible. And then the other end of it is like, we made it, this is it, we're doing it. And it's like, and I feel like too, that's part of that is what's really driving all of these emotions in all of us. Like I mentioned yesterday that I was having, and I have friends that are feeling the same, and you've mentioned a lot of people too are feeling that, and that we're really, none of us are going to be untouched by it. But it's my basic general question here is, what really is going on?
What the hell is going on, people?
What is happening? Because I want to just to give you a little bit of something to work with. When this all started, the intuition that I had and that I've had, it's not gone away, is that this is the start of something different. We will never go back. There is no going back. And that's just my intuition, of course, but it's very strong. And so with that, it drives my, okay, but what does that mean? Which direction are we, going? So what do you feel? I mean, what do you think?
Yeah. I think we're witnessing the perfect playing out of duality in many ways. The biggest being that there are factions that are inciting a lot of fear. And the basis of this is to create fear. But we are living on the planet Earth. And the thing that really came through in the meditation that we did earlier today is the Mother Earth is taking this thing that was created out of fear to create fear, because they are in fear of their own ending, right? Because the light, the positive side, I don't really like to use the word light, because we are light and dark, and we should be a balance of that, not that we're eliminating our darkness. So I like to say positive. The positive is winning. And when you are winning, and let me rephrase this, in that there's many different layers to this. So this is one of them, is that when they are trying to create fear, they're trying to undermine our own empowerment, because they don't want us to know how strong we are, that just by having meditations, we can shift this. So the more they can get us into the fear matrix, the more we are taking out of our own power, and that creates their agenda of coming out ahead. The Mother Earth, though, is also playing a role in this. And just as we are working towards ascension, the Earth is working towards its ascension. And the beauty of Mother Earth is that she can take a negative and switch it to a positive. She can do that, and we can do that. Any sovereign being can do that. And so she is doing that, and we are now challenged to take our power and make sure that we stay empowered, which just means that we are keeping our vibration in a good, positive state. And it's really being challenged, like you said right now, though, because everyone's emotions are at a peak. And it's the reason that comes in is as we get closer to 5D, the more we have to clear out our emotional bodies, our physical bodies, of all these old past hurts, all these past wounds. And my client today was a perfect example of that, because she came to me, and so my client today, she had been a client of mine several months ago, and she had come to me with, she was very anxious, she was very stressed out, she was confused, she didn't know what to do, she was looking for a job and nothing was working, she felt like she was stuck and she couldn't move forward. We had our sessions and she left and she's like, I'm glowing, I'm just doing so great. And the last time I saw her was in January, and she called me last week asking for a session, and she comes in today and she's like, I felt so good till about a week ago. I mean, I was flying. I was positive. I knew exactly what I wanted. I knew that it was all working out. Everything was just falling into place. And then it was like the bottom just fell out. And she said, all this old wounds came up. And she's like, I'm confused. I'm stuck. I'm in fear. And a lot of anger. We have a lot of anger in us because we've stuffed it down for so long. And at this time, if we're going to move into that 5D, we can't take that with us. And that going into 5D is really, it's around the corner now, because what Mother Gaia is doing is she's now on that ascension path. And in that meditation we did today, they really talked about the separation, like that is happening. We've heard about it, but this separation is becoming a reality. And going after March 20th, March 23rd, after we get through this phase, we are going to really feel the increased energy. And now what that does is a couple things. It in some ways makes the sickness We have to be careful what we say right now on the social medias. The sickness that's going around, the most intense probably this weekend, because the energy is so freaking high. But now if we get past that weekend, if we can take care of ourselves, and as we take care of ourselves and stay in that positivity, we're going to see the shift. And there's so many different shifts. You know, I read something on Facebook about an hour before we got on. One of the truthers that are on Facebook, and I think we've all heard about how strongly they have went down on the people who are posting truth on Facebook, how they take off your posts if it has anything to do with self-empowerment, especially about health, right?
Oh, yes. I try to post things about eating healthy because, you know, that's my business, and they block my posts all the time, and I'm like, this is helping people.
Right. And obviously that's been the agenda, is for that to not happen. So this guy who has had tons of his posts deleted and taken off because it doesn't meet their standards, he said, like, it was like 20 minutes, probably about before, so a couple hours ago, they were what do you call it when they've been reinstated to his Facebook? They're like allowing a lot of the information to be reposted, saying, oh, you know what, we were wrong. Now,
you know, and that's not the first, you know, Google has been doing that too, because there was you know, not to get into it, but you know, you can't find true information about vaccinations, and there are moms that are now like, oh my God, we can find this, and it's at the top. What's
right?
going on?
Now that is a powerful statement, because a couple weeks ago you couldn't do that.
No.
So
No, and it was
something
all
has become freed. Yeah,
Yes.
something has become freed. Something has shifted. Something has changed. Now, what that is, you know, a lot of people, you know, can go into, you know, whether it's Q, whether it's the white hats, whether it's the positive aspects that are assisting us. You know, I have no idea why, but I see and feel the shift of that. So what is happening is a struggle between positive and not positive, right? And it is your personal role, Corrina's, as well as anyone else's, as well as it's mine, that when you recognize that your role here is to hold the energy and to hold it as high as possible, is to find ways to sit in that positive energy and live in it, instead of getting caught up in the frustration. Now, to be in that energy, right, you have to clear out all the past emotional pain, though, because you can't lie about your emotions. What did I tell you yesterday when you were all in despair? I was like, you know, because one of the things that set you off, right, was something that was truth, but it was really ugly truth. And I asked you, would you rather have knowledge or peace?
Yep.
And with that being said, yeah, she did say peace, but that's also a harsh answer in some ways. And so I wanted to reassure Corrina at that time was that, okay, if you want peace, then you have to allow yourself to have the emotion, work your way through that emotion. Don't just stuff the emotion back down and ignore it, because it's just going to keep popping up. That's not taking care of it. The emotion just wants to be witnessed. The emotion wants to be validated. But once you move through all those emotions, how did you feel?
It was such an amazing thing. And, you know, it wasn't just that. It's a couple things actually happened yesterday that are exactly on what you're saying. And maybe some of the people listening this can help put into perspective, because as you're talking, I'm feeling like I need to say this because I feel like other people are going through this too. You know, there's a couple people in my life that I've struggled with relationship wise to try to hold the right energy, but you know, it doesn't always work. It's like a tug of war sometimes, and it's especially sometimes we get sick of feeling like we're the only ones trying, or vice versa. And you know, there's all that. Relationships are sticky, and you know, specifically one with my husband and my mother. And I want to say this because I want people to understand. If this is let me back that up. When you were talking, I felt pushed to say it. because I didn't have any realization that this actually had to do with what was going on until you mentioned some stuff about your client in your session. And, my husband and I, he's military, and we've had a rough go because I've very, very much been on a spiritual path, intentfully, not just a part-time gig for me. It's been something that I've made my priority to heal. And it's been a rough road. And my husband hasn't always been accepting of that. And I think that's because of, I can gather because of his, not wanting to look at the things within and not wanting to face them. And, so that's been something that's been building, between me and my husband. And then for the past few weeks, everything seemed great. I felt like we'd finally, we had a big blow up fight, and then we finally got to a place where we were at peace. And it was almost, but I knew in the back of my mind, it was one of those like blanket things, but I didn't realize how fragile it was. And the other day, out of nowhere, I said something and it was actually about what's going on, and bringing up, the truth of what's going on, because he doesn't really like to acknowledge all the time, that there's more out there than us and all of that. And he got so angry with me that it threw me back. It just stirred up everything that we had tried to get through for so many years. We've been married almost 7 years, and we've grown up together, really. We got married at 20. We've grown up together. And it was like all of that stuff just had to come out. And we got into this, it wasn't even just a fight. It worked out to a way where both of us were forced to be able to have to listen to the other and to just get it all out, whether it be screaming, whatever, it was coming out, and that was it. And the crazy thing about it is that for the first time, now that the storm was over and there'd been a little bit of time in between, I felt that there was true healing. Not a blanket, not a mask of until next time we'll walk on eggshells, but a true healing. And that higher voice in the back of my mind said, this is it. This is the push. And he's, because my biggest thing is I've been wanting my husband to wake up for some time now. And I think a lot of us probably are in a situation similar. And, it was like confirmation that we finally broke that barrier. And the conversation was so fluid. And, there's that. And I can't help, and there's multiple things that I've seen, but I can't help but notice that this energy is like you're saying, it's causing these storms, but it is healing. It is forcing us to heal, and it is forcing us to choose if we're going to heal.
Exactly. Because it is a choice, right?
Yeah. It's not nothing can make us, but it's a, there's these bonds that we have that you're choosing. Is this worthy to you? And if it is, get on with it. None of this wait around anymore and let it be the back and forth. And it's amazing. And I wanted to share that because I'm curious, but I almost know the answer of how many, there's got to be a lot of us feeling this right now.
Yeah, just the upheaval of everything that's going on. And there's the external is always reflected into the internal. So we've got the external upheavals of everything going on, and everything outside of us, it's shifting, it's changing. How people have done business, how people have interacted, how they've gone out about their business every day is completely different this week than it was last week. And that never happens. Like, people never make huge shifts and changes on such a society level, social level, like has happened in the last week. And it's because they've been backed into a corner, right? We either do this or we're going to, potentially have an even worse case scenario. So it's created this excuse or reason to move into a new way of doing things. And so that is being mirrored back into your own internal self, right? You can do it the same old way that we've always done it, but you're kind of being backed into a corner to either do it differently so that you can have a different income. Because, if you just do the same thing over and over again, but get the same result over and over again, that just never serves you, it never gets you anywhere. So it's only sometimes by putting us into a corner and giving us a reason or excuse. And it has to be a huge one to make a huge shift, to make a change in how we're doing something, to look at things differently, like you were saying, to look at relationships differently, to assess why you want to be in a relationship or you don't want to be in a relationship, and then make the conscious decision of what you really do want. And there's so much empowerment behind that, you know, that's how things are manifested. And I love teaching about manifestation because it is so much about how you're feeling. It's about your energy. You can think about it all day, but if you don't give passion and your rising of energy around that, you're not going to get anywhere. Or if you're trying to manifest something and you want it so bad that you don't think you'll ever be able to live without it, that's a negative energy. Nobody ever feels into the energy that they're projecting sometimes. And you really got to become self-aware to do that. Anyway, so I feel like we kind of got off the topic, but let's have your next question.
Well, yep. And you know what? I'll be honest with you. I started to write a list and I also said the same thing. I want to see what comes. And just at the end of that, the next question came to me. And you know, I want to know, and this is a question I actually brought up a while back, but I want to see what the answer is now. We have all this. What is it that those of us who are sitting here knowing what's going on, what is it that we can do to help push it on? You know, what is it that we can do to, as I guess the term would be, to fight the good fight? You know, to kind of, you know, the best thing I want to say is to help us put that anger somewhere positive that's rising in all of us, and just help us to push everything out, but also to help be the catalyst for this in our own ways. What advice do you have for that?
You know, it's the advice that you have to work through the anger about why you have the anger, because we want to push it out against somebody else, right? We want them to see it from our perspective, but that's not our role. Our role is to find our own peace. And the best role model ever is when someone can look at you and go, wow, what are you doing? And what happened? You've got this vibe. You're all relaxed and you seem happy. How did you get there?
Yeah.
That is how real change is made, because you can't push somebody into believing what you believe in, to seeing things the way that you see them, to appreciate what you appreciate, because it's their journey. And when you have this, and I'm not speaking of you specifically, but when any of us have this need, and I call it the evangelistic need, to tell everybody, right? This is what's going on, right? But do they need to know? Why would they need to know? Unless if their higher self, if their spiritual team needs them to know, they'll be directed to where they need to know. But it's not our role to put it in their face and make them look at that. Now, this is where it gets tricky, in that if we're feeling inspired, if we're talking about something and we're passionate about it, and it comes into the conversation, there's nothing wrong with that. But there's a difference between trying to convince people. And, you know, we spoke a little bit about my husband and I have completely different views on spirituality, about politics. I do not even want to get involved in politics. I don't want to step into that realm because it makes people immediately choose sides. And we don't need to choose sides. We choose ourselves. We choose to love ourselves. What everyone else is doing, that's their role. That's their job. But if you want to be the example, be the peaceful, you know, inner happy, joyful, the person that is lucky. Like, I've always been told how lucky I am. My husband, he always said it like it was a nasty thing. You're so lucky. And I'm like, you know, I just look at the positive. Now, so, you know, can I change his viewpoint about my luck? No, because he's living life from his own lenses. He's seeing life from his perspective. Ooh, speaking of lenses, I've got the perfect lenses for seeing things in the best way possible. I got these. These are my lucky.
Oh my God, how cute is that?
My crystal glasses. People tell me, you know, I look at life through rose-colored glasses. I don't have rose-colored glasses. I have crystal glasses with feathers and tassels.
You're fabulous. I
You
love
know
it.
what? And this is fun. But I'm
Yes.
not here to say everybody else, you need to wear glasses like I do. You need to have glasses with a feather on them because they're fun. I want you to have fun. People aren't going to buy into that. It doesn't feel like fun to them.
In their own way, you know, they need to know, they need to be able to feel comfortable in expressing themselves in their way.
Right? And so
Yeah.
when you love yourself, you open up safe spaces for people.
Yeah.
And that's
And
when they open up.
true. It's so interesting how that happens too, because it's such a shift, and I feel like I've mentioned this before, but how you can go from that looking upon others with judgment to that once you have this wholeness with, to be able to go, oh wow, okay, I see their style, I see their vision, I see what they're, I don't agree with that one, but you know, they'll get there. You it's so amazing how that changes your whole world. Your whole life changes because you go from being somebody who spends your whole life concerned about what other people do to somebody who's there to cheer them on while you just do your thing, you know? And
there's also a level of judgment that they aren't where we are.
yeah, that's
right?
that's actually was one of my questions.
So we think that we are where everyone should be. But the reality is it has to kind of be staggered. And we talked a little bit about that yesterday, in that my husband serves a great basis for me in ways that it took me a while to appreciate, I guess. He is creating a solid base for me. He creates a different perspective for me. He creates me to look at things from his perspective with authenticity and without judgment. So if we look at everyone that comes across our path as an opportunity to see ourselves better, is really the key here. That all these people are just mirroring back to you an opportunity for you to see and know yourself a little better. And that is really the gold. You know, that's the not the surprise, it's the reward. And you know, instead of trying to convince everyone else and what they need to do, let's go back to being inward and seeing what we can do for ourselves. And then we are the example, but not the example that we are insisting they be like us, but they're just naturally kind of, wow, what are they doing differently that creates them to be so happy and be able to wear weird glasses and smile and have fun and manifest things that, you know, not happening for me. So that's my perspective.
Something that I because I told you I've made this like my day job, really, to just try to progress as much as I can and heal. And something that was told to me by a mentor that really, really helped me to get there was, when you see something trigger you in a conversation with somebody or a relationship with somebody, instead of asking what's wrong with them, ask what's not healed within you. And he said to me, he said, a person has a million traits about them, but there's a reason why a certain number of them, in specific ones, are the ones that bother you. And I started to live my life like that. You know, instead of going, oh my God, I can't stand that, you know, so-and-so always has to be the first person to say something. I'm like, oh wait, I do that. So I'm, you know, and I realized that most of it was really just things that were a part of me that I wasn't comfortable with, because at some point I was like suppressed, you know what I mean? At some point I was told that it was wrong to be that way. So even though I still was that way, I wasn't comfortable with being me. So I would judge other people when they did it and, oh my God, why, you know, like, why does she always have to be the one that has to be the leader? You know what I mean? And that's a trait of mine, but I've always felt I was told it was a bad thing. And just going on what you're saying. And, you know, that kind of leads into one of the questions that I did have, if you want to move along.
Yeah.
Because you had mentioned something earlier about not being able to take the anger with you. And, you know, there is something that I'm curious about. And if you
Let
might have
me rephrase that. there's nothing wrong with having the anger. It's taking the residual anger that hasn't been witnessed and is still stuck in your energy field.
Okay.
Does that make sense? Like you can have anger and you get the right to be angry, but express the anger, witness the anger, allow it to flow out. Have the anger as long as it takes to get it out of your system. And honestly, it never takes as long as people think it's going to take. It actually takes way more time, effort, and energy to stuff it into the suitcase and into the back box behind the closet and underneath the coats than it is to just have your moment of anger and validate that you have the right for anger, and then allow the anger to flow away effortlessly.
I see what you're saying. So something that I've been struggling with, and that I'm going to get a little personal with this, but it might help somebody, is not necessarily holding on to anger or anything like that, but not being able to shut off that little piece of my mind that's judgmental. You know, and it's not that I would ever dislike somebody or treat them differently because of the judgment that was passed in my mind, because I'm aware that that's not okay. But I can't turn the voice off for whatever reason. Like it's, you know, it's things that I notice. And I wonder, you know, is that something that really, that you, I mean, in your opinion or expertise, that has to be healed before you're allowed to move into this fifth dimension or whatnot?
I think it will heal with time. And I want to share what's really going on when that voice comes up. All right. So in your brain, you have a brain, and the brain is not the same as a mind. I want to clarify that. So your brain is the physical being. Sorry, my microphone, I knocked it into the screen.
It just wants to be a part of the show.
All right. The brain, the physical being, is very much like a computer. And from the moment you're born, it's been storing information. It's been observing. It's been storing information. It's going, this happened, and then this happened. And we get fed things into our brain by what we say, by what we feel, by what other people have told us about ourselves. And the brain has stored that away and going, I'm holding on to that. And so when you have the feeling, or the mind comes in and says, wow, I'm God and I'm wonderful, and the little brain pops in with, no, you're not. You know that you're too short. You know that you don't, your thighs are fat. Yeah. That little nagging voice that comes in and does that is the brain in the left brain. Some people call it the ego, but it's coming in. It's coming in and it's just repeating what's been stored in it. It doesn't have. It's
not a bad thing.
It's not necessarily bad. The trick is that you can take control of the brain. And I'm not saying it's necessarily easy, and I'm not saying it's going to happen right away. But what I do want you to know is that brain that is just repeating what it's been fed will even lie to you. And let me give you an example. So like when we first moved into this house, it was like the first day I was here, and there was something that I needed to do with the bank that day. But I was very distracted by just, being in the house for the first day, all the moving, all the cleaning. But I kept telling my brain, I was like, don't forget to do this. Don't forget to do it. Don't forget. I have to do this. It's really important. Don't forget. I just kept reiterating it in my head. And I went to bed. I woke up in the middle of the night. I have to go pee in the middle of the night. So I was going pee. And I forgot to do that. And I was like, how could have I forgot to do that? It was really important. And I reminded myself over and over, how could have I forgotten? And my mind went, no, you did it. And I was like, I did do that. And now I'm having this conversation with my left brain going, what the hell are you telling me that I didn't do it? But the brain is like a parrot. It just repeats back whatever it's been told. So the key here is that you just have to take control and say, no, you're lying to me, and I don't value input that isn't helpful. And, doing sessions with people, we're always trying to access the mind being that point of your brain, or the brain, it encompasses the brain and encompasses your imagination. So if you consider, and this is a very simplistic viewpoint, that the brain is the left brain and your mind is both your left and the right. It encompasses your right brain, because the right brain is where the imagination comes from. It accesses that point where the dreams come from. It accesses the point of all of your existences. It also accesses the point of your body, because your body receives information continuously. One of the coolest things ever done was about how the heart, they actually did scientific studies about how the heart receives information before the brain does. The heart knows things. It's called heart math, if anyone wants to look it up. The heart knows before the brain does. And the brain is catching up to what the heart knows. So the mind encompasses all of these different aspects, where the brain is just the little piece of computer that's dealing with this existence, this particular life, and its information that's been fed into it, whether it's been good, bad, it doesn't matter, because it's just been taking the information. And the other thing that left brain likes to do is, if it gets something that it doesn't even know what to do with, because it doesn't compute to what it knows, it puts it in little boxes and puts it in the back of the shelf, so that because it doesn't know what to do with it. It's like, I don't know what to do with that. How did I just have this really surreal experience, and my mind doesn't have a way to wrap it up and present it in a way that it can make sense of. It shoves things under the carpet and away. The mind is accessing all of your knowledge. Your mind accesses your intuition, your imagination. And when I say imagination is not a bad thing, because it's the gateway to accessing all the realms.
Interesting.
So I really like to always clarify how our brain and mind work. And the key here is, when the brain is coming up with conflicting information, because what happens, here's the scenario, right? You get an idea and you're like, oh, you know what? I should move that plant. And then the brain goes up, well, no, you don't need to move that plant. And we were going to go do these chores. So we need to do the chores first. But then you listen to the left brain, and then the plant, something happens to the plant where it would have been fine if you had followed that first intuitive thought that popped into your head. But the brain comes up with, no, we've got a regulatory thing going on here. We have a to-do list. We have to do what we're told. Now, and I want to share, this is what happens in my head all the time.
I'm laughing because me too. Oh my God. And then you find yourself walking back and forth and nothing's getting done.
Right, and you haven't and so what I've learned is, if I'm having an argument in my head, I try to go back to that first thought. What was the first thought? And why aren't I doing it? Is it that hard to go water the plant? I mean, so I've learned that if I follow that, things go smoothly. Where if I listen to the left brain and all of its inquisitive, down talk, you don't get nearly as much done, because you're not staying in the path of the energy, of the flow. And that's what your intuition really provides for you, is the ability to move easily and effortlessly from one to the next. And in these times, it's really important, because this is the other scenario I'm hearing over and over, is everything was going, like the client I had today, everything was going so swimmingly smooth. It was all falling into place. I could just see it happening, and I was so happy with how everything was going. And then about a week ago, kaboom, everything just started falling apart to the way she thought it was going to happen. And the left brain doesn't know what to do with that. So the only way to navigate that stream, these really turbulent times, is to stay centered, to find your truth. You had asked me yesterday, how do you know what to believe? Should I believe this person? Should I believe that person? And then there's this other person. And the only way to find answers is to going within yourself with a quiet mind and feeling into it, not assessing it with the brain, because the brain's going to find a million different arguments. But the heart feels into the truth, and it goes there quickly and easily. It doesn't have to have the argument. It doesn't need the pros and the cons. It doesn't need the assessment of, I believe them or I don't believe them. It goes into what is right for you.
Yeah. Yeah, that speaks to me so much. That's amazing. Like, and I have those conversations in my head too, because it's now that, like, the more aware you become of it, but I never really put, the whole judgment thing with that it was just my mind following old habits, rather than, oh, it's something that's not healed. It's something, because I'm like, that's been a struggle, because I'm like, I know that it's healed, because, I don't feel this way. I'm thinking this way. I'm not feeling this way.
Right.
And that's a huge difference, and
Yeah.
so it's just like, it's good to get that perspective, because I had sat there and thought about, well, is this going to affect my path because I can't seem to get that right? Not that, I mean, I don't know, maybe you've heard something.
Well, that's a great thing. I hear that all the time. What if I make the wrong decision?
Yeah.
What if I go the wrong way? And what I hear from higher selves all the time is there is no wrong way. Even if you made a decision in the moment that was not the most ideally aligned, they're really good at jogging you right back to where you need to be. And you'll know it. The key to anything and everything is making a decision and moving, because it's only when you're stagnant that you're not being able to receive the feedback information, right? Because you get stuck, you get overwhelmed, and you're not moving. It's only when you move and you take a step, and when you take that step, now you have a whole new realm of information for your body and your intuition to zone in on and go, this feels good and this doesn't feel good. And that gives you the information to switch to what it is that you do need to be doing. And people say, well, what if I make a really, 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 really big decision, And it's like, it doesn't matter. Movement is the key. If you're moving, you're going to find your way. They will make sure that you find your way.
That is so refreshing to hear, because let me tell you, there have been so many times where I'm like, I have this, I mean, and this is something, kind of my inner dialogue, where I'm like, I have a goal in my head. I'm like, and this will be in my next question, but I'm like, I want to move to this new earth. Like, I don't want to be here anymore. Like, I think I'm done with all this crap, and I just want to get there, and I want to go there. And I've, it's been hard, because there's a lot of times where I'm like almost too hard on myself, where I'm like, oh my God, is that going to just derail the whole thing? And like, this is a stressful time, because a lot of, all of us, nobody really knows. Even they don't really know, what is going to be.
This is a new thing that's happening. Everyone thinks that on the other side they have all the answers, but they're really waiting to see what happens too. There's different timelines, there's different probabilities, but what we are currently doing and experiencing is happening now, and they don't have this layout of this is going to work perfectly if we do it this way. It's about the movement and then assessing where we are and then making the shift and change to the most optimal movement. And the whole moving into this new earth thing, a lot of people think this is going to be just you're there. And that's not my perception of it. I feel, what I understand is that this is going to be a 3D and a 5D experience for a while. And the only way you're going to shift back and forth between those. And the only way you stay more in 5D is by clearing up your emotional body, by clearing up the past wounds, because that allows yourself to stay in that realm easier. But we can also
sorry, I just, while it stays in my mind, because something popped up when you're talking about this. When you're talking about it's going to be 3D, 5D for a while, are we talking like, do you think in our lifetime we'll actually be there, or that's my question. Is this like biblical time where no one knows what the time is? Is it going to be hundreds of years will be 5D, or is it like
right
30 years?
And that's so human, is that we want to know when.
Yeah.
When can we have this over with?
Yeah. I want to be
Let's
human.
go back to the answer prior is that they don't know. You know, honestly, they don't know. Okay? It is an evolution right now. And the biggest thing that I can tell anybody is just to be in your now. What are you doing for yourself to make you feel better in this moment? What a beautiful gift we have this weekend. You know, everyone's like under quarantine, right? You can't go out to eat. You can't go anywhere. You're supposed to stay home. You're not supposed to get close to anybody. And I sit in my home and I look at the window and I'm like, this is so gorgeous.
Yeah.
Right here, right now, I am not affected by anything that's going out on that world. And the only thing that really bring it in is the TV, or if I let it in on the computer. But if I choose not to turn on the TV, and I choose not to dive into all the drama that's happening on the news and or the TV, I am pretty dang content.
Yeah.
I am so happy. I have everything that I need. And I've got a cat that's rolling around on the floor that just wants to be petted. In this moment, staying in that world of the now raises your energy naturally,
Yeah.
which really gets us to where we want. But when we bring up the why, when we bring up the how, when we bring up the when, it creates angst in us. Because we're like, oh my God, when's it going to happen? I really want it to happen.
But you got to admit, it's so difficult because we are human, and it's so difficult to not sit there and be like, when, you know, I feel like even on the other side, like I feel like there's no way on the other side of this that they're not sitting there like, all right, when is this going to happen? You know what I mean? This has been some time now. I
think they definitely are looking at the projections, but I think they're so busy with how much stuff is going on. And I would say that the more the angst, the more the drama, the closer we are to getting there.
I feel that too. So I want to ask you, talking about them and the drama, I kind of want to ask, because you had mentioned about the meditation you did earlier. Did you get any information? What did they tell you? I want to know.
You know, they talked a lot about holding true to the quarantine this weekend because the energies are really high. March 20th, 21, is it the equinox? I'm terrible with the terminology for these astrological times. It's a huge time. This is really the peak of the energy. And because the energy is so high, it really is safest to heed the warnings of taking the time to stay in, not necessarily indoors, but away from other people, to not really expose yourself as much as possible. Another thing that we really were focusing on in this meditation is to release the majority of the human population on Earth from the fear morphic grid, because that is how it's growing, by people's fear. So they said we were about 90% successful within releasing the fear level, which is huge because that just keeps the numbers down about the spread. Mm-hmm. They talked about how Mother Earth is really good at turning positive out of a negative, and she's definitely doing that. This separation, and the way I see the separation is, you know, if we can imagine that at one time we were the 5D and the 3D, and that they're separating. Now, they're not literally separating. This is just an analogy of what's going to happen. But it's just, if you can imagine them, the 5D and the 3D, that started, I think, about a year ago. So it kind of started. I think where we're getting to the point is it's actually, you know, like a little bit more like this, where it's not completely enclosed, but we're still like in touching distance, which is where we go into the 3D and the 5D. We can switch back and forth, but we're getting better at staying in the 5D because that morphic grid for the 5D has been established more. Our DNA has been upgraded more. And the more that you stay in that positive, the more you do meditation, the more you open yourself up. If you're asking for assistance, whether it's, you know, building relationship with your spiritual team, doing some self-realization exercises, all of those create that higher, it brings in the downloads necessary to switch the DNA to the crystalline DNA, because we're switching from carbon to crystalline based DNA, right? And to be in the 5D, you need a crystalline DNA to exist comfortably. And that's why we have so much stuff bubbling up, is we have so much going on right now. Our bodies are literally changing. Our energetic fields are changing. The world is changing. There's so much going on. So everybody's looking out to the future about how, when, why, and, you know, what's that look like for me? But it's really why it's so important to stay within yourself. And as you work through all those layers of the fear of all the things that are coming up for you, and why, you know, the fear is coming up, why do you want to know? Because the why is about controlling the situation, really. It's about, I want it to be this way, or I want to see what it looks like, because I'm not having faith that I'm going to be taken care of, right? So when you start relaxing into yourself and you build up the relationship, and you can relax into, I'm good where I'm at, I'm happy with where I'm at, then you just naturally flow into that.
That's I guess that makes a lot of sense too. And especially the part about going back and forth. I mean, that really kind of clarified a lot for me, because I do feel I found myself frustrated too, because I feel like I'm like, yeah, I'm you know, I'm at peace and I'm at this. And then I'm like, especially this week, I felt like I really just dove right back into that 3D. And I'm like, and I'm like, it's almost like my mind wasn't there. My mind's looking at me like, really? Like, this is what we're doing? You know what I mean? And
right?
like,
yeah, right? Yeah.
Like it's like my body and my brain were there, but my mind was over here, like, if to use your words, and was like, hey, like, come on, what are we doing? You know better than this, you know? And I'm like, oh my God.
My spiritual teachers talks about just being in the and. I am 3D, but I'm also 5D. I can be angry, and I can also be observant of what's going on, observant of why I'm angry. Like, you can do more than one thing. We're multidimensional. We can do this. So yeah.
So I wonder if you've gotten anything about this. A lot of people are talking about this, and it is causing a lot of fear. Have they mentioned anything about how this 5G could be affecting us, or in a good or bad way, or what it is?
Yeah, I mean, what I have heard, and I have no validation of this, it is definitely could be playing a role in undermining our own immunity system. It's from my understanding, and again, you know, I haven't received any information from my own spiritual mentors, but I have done enough and felt into it, and it does feel like to me that it is a mechanism to try to control the masses again. And one of the key things is undermining our immunity system, because of the vibration that it's at. It gets into our own energetic field, and it just disrupts it enough that it can create where we can pick up illnesses more. So whether that's true or not, I don't know. I like to focus on the idea that it's going away. And that's where I put, you know, you're talking about what can we do? Meditate on a positive outlook. And, you know, for me, it's like, I see a beautiful earth that is in full support of the occupants on it, that we all work together, that we have a unity consciousness where we take care of the earth and the earth takes care of us. And for me, that brings me peace, because now I feel like I am doing something. I am creating something. I am focused on something that I can do in a very proactive way. That's very empowering. That's why we're here, is to empower ourselves, because we are sovereign and we are divinity, and we can create this new earth in a beautiful way. So if there was something to do, it would be to focus on what we would like it to look like. And if at all possible, for the best good of all, right? If we don't get too caught up in our own personal want of the Lamborghini in the driveway. Not that there's anything wrong to have a Lamborghini in the driveway. My husband's certainly working on getting a Corvette in the driveway, and that's cool. And that's cool. But I'm just saying that, I like to focus on the bigger picture of how things can work out in a most positive manner. And so that's where I put my energy. That's what I do. That's my action step to move us into the 5D as quickly as possible, right? As easily as possible. Yeah.
I think that's a really good way to, I think that's super solid advice, because I feel like that kind of could sum up how to get rid of, all this fear, all this uncertainty of knowing what's coming up, just staying balanced. And it's something that I've been trying to just keep reminding myself. A way that I did do that today is I deleted my Facebook app. So in order to actually see Facebook, I would have to go into my web browser and all sorts of stuff. And I set up a pool in the front yard for the kids, and we got water guns, and we're like quarantine happy. And I kept thinking about what you said yesterday about sitting outside and hearing the birds and, all of that. And it's so true. I mean, you even mentioned a little bit in this conversation, it's so true, because it's almost like you physically step out of that world. You physically step out of what's going on, and you physically ground yourself in your own bubble of peace. And it's totally possible for us all to do. And it's so easy to do. It really all it takes is unplugging. Just get rid of the phone and the TV and just be, in your zone. And I think, that's something that's been really helpful in balancing back out the energy that kind of came from yesterday. And so I'm hoping that advice can help other people too, to kind of get there, because I feel like even so, we're all anxious for this to happen, but maybe just if we all could do that, like maybe if this weekend, right? Say you mentioned the 21st equinox. I don't know if that's Saturday or Sunday. What is it? I think it might be Sunday, or no, it's Saturday. What if we all just did that for the day, and we all focused on just being in that balance? Like what could we shift, if so many of us did that? I mean, that'd be really cool to see it happen, right?
And there's tons of meditations going on right now. I mean, it's really easy to find meditations that are in assistance to the earth, of healing the earth, of healing us and getting us past this illness that's currently going on. And they're all beneficial. The more you can stay centered into your own still point, that is where the power is. So, yeah, absolutely. So empowering to do that.
That is such a wonderful thing. The only other question that I had, and I don't even know if it really fits in here anymore because you've kind of addressed it, but I want to see if maybe we get a little something, is because the human in me.
I know, right? We're still human. We still have that. We're human and.
Yes, and. Is, a little bit on, I saw something on, it's something that you introduced me to a while back, and I looked at the name of it today. It was called The Portal, and it talked about the endgame scenarios, and they had a timeline on there, and they were saying that their projection was, I mean, actually I think the way that they worded it was that they felt it was a pretty solid thing, which I know, and that, and they know as well that it's not ever. But, they were given dates of these things that were allegedly to happen starting on the 16th, where I forgot what that one was, but it was something that did happen, and then moving onward. So I'm curious if you've heard any validation to that, any confirmation to it.
I can't say that I have.
Okay.
I think there is going to be a lot of shifting. And as I was saying about the Facebook thing, to me, that was huge, because if you're going to start finding, truth or information coming up on a Google search or in Facebook, something's going on behind the scenes.
Yeah.
The fight is real. You know, we've talked about this. The fight is real. Do we want to get so caught up in the fight that it brings up angst in us? No, but there is power in knowing the reality of it and still staying in your still point. The timing, no, because, you know, every time I've tried to buy into a timing, it's never been the right time. And honestly, I've given up on trying to determine the exact time. You know, it's just like,
I think
for
the
me, it's a waste of energy anymore of trying to figure it out, because it's nothing, that it's a target that's never seems to actually be hit true. And when it does happen, it's like when you manifest, it's like you know, you don't really manifest well until you give up the want of it. And what I mean by that is, when we are like, my husband wants a Corvette. If he sits here and goes, I want it, 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 I wanted it, that's not drawing it to you energy. That almost pushes it away because you're so aware of the lack of it.
Yeah.
And it's not until you're okay with where you are going, you know what, it would be really nice to have a Corvette, but I really don't need a Corvette. I'm really got a great car anyway. I mean, it would be fun. It'd be really cool to play with.
I love it.
But you know what? I'm okay. I'm really in a space where if that Corvette never comes, it's okay. And that brings in the Corvette much faster than the needy energy.
Yeah.
And that's the way I feel about the timelines. By really trying to focus on the timelines, we're getting needy about the timeline.
Yeah.
Instead of going, you know what? I'm really okay with where I'm at. I know it's on its way. And boy, it's going to be really cool when it happens. It's going to be really cool. But I'm feeling, I mean, for me, I'm looking at what's happening. And, you know, when I would walk through Walmart, I told you this yesterday, when I walk through Walmart and you see the crazy level going on, you're like, I am walking in history.
Yeah.
Do I have specific dates of that? No, but I can feel the history being made right now.
Yeah, that's 100%. I think the timeline it was talking about was not, I think it was more so on like the end to this like quarantine situation and all of that. And I guess, you know, it's the same thing. It's still the same thing, because you're saying it's like, you know, just be cool with what's going on and just wait on it. It'll happen. And I knew that I was going to get that kind of answer from you, but I thought, sure.
I know, and they're such frustrating answers, right? You're like, I just want to know.
Yeah, I want, it's like you said yesterday, you brought up such an interesting point when you said that you used to see the world as black and white, and now you see that it's like very gray. And it's so, gosh, it's so true, because it's like, it almost drives you nuts. Like, it really kind of drives me nuts, because I'm like, I just want to be able to say that one thing is one thing. And I want to be able to like write something down and go, this is going to happen, or this is what this is. And it's just solid, you know. And it's like, the more you realize there's like a lack of organization, I don't know what it is, or if it's like things can just be so many different things, or, you know, it's your interpretation. It's just, it's hard to not get anxious about it. It's hard to not overthink. It's hard to not get rabbit holed. It's hard to not get caught up in what it is and trying to figure it out, because it's so mystical. It's so mysterious, because it's not black and white. It's, you know, black and white's not very mysterious, because it is what it is.
So let me give you the one thing that's true.
Okay.
I can give you one thing that's true.
Okay. I can take that. I'll take that.
One thing. I am that I am. And sit with that. And feel that in your center point. I am that I am. Everything else is noise.
Yeah.
Can you feel the difference?
Yeah, I do. It kind of feel a little more centered here.
Right?
Like I brought all those pieces of me that are trying to figure it all out and put them back.
The brain is like going, I want this, I want this, I want this, I want this, I want to know this, I want to know that. It's trying to gather all of its information to put it in its little compartments.
Yeah.
Who do you want to be in charge of your brain?
Me. My mind, right? You want the mind to be.
So the truth is, I am.
Yes. Gosh, it's so, you just have a way of putting things in such a like simple, I don't know the right words for it, but you have a talent.
And what's so funny is it feels really good when we do it, and then you're going to go away and the brain's going to get caught up again. You're going, damn, I didn't get any answers.
Yeah. And I promise you, as soon as this call is over, I'm going to go, dang it, I should have asked this, and I should have asked this. But, you know, it's really cool because I feel like more and more I'm becoming just okay with not having to have the answer. I mean, 2 years ago, I was that person. I would stay up till like 6 a.m. trying to like almost like starving for the answer to think, you know, and I feel like maybe you've been there. You get what I'm talking about.
Oh my God. Yeah. And it serves its point. It serves its purpose. It gets you out of where you were to where you are now.
Yeah. Cause it's almost like a starved animal that like, they're so hungry and they've got to eat and once they realize that the food is there and it'll come, you know, they're not so aggressive towards the food anymore. And like that's kind of how I feel about the knowledge anymore. It's like, you know, it's cool, it's there, you know, what's meant for me will be, you know, to know. But I the old me got so, or I would say the past me, you know,
But here's the thing about this, just for a second, I want to share this with you because I feel like the reason we feel so starved is we were fed sugar puffs up until we discovered things that really resenated with us.
Yeah.
And then we're like eating meat. We're like, oh my God, this is so good. And this is real. What was that other stuff they've been feeding me for decades?
Gosh.
I've been surviving on corn puffs and all this garbage. And now you're being fed something. You're being fed sustenance that feeds your soul. And so you are starving for it.
And it's that connection with other people too that sort of validate that you were starved because they were, that you're just like, okay, you too, okay, and now you just feel so much more empowered on it too because you're like, okay, well, there's something to this. Because I mean, when I first stepped on this road, and maybe a lot of us did, it felt wrong. Like, oh my God, I'm doing something so crazy right now that I
Was
can't
that your left brain talking to you by any chance?
Yeah, it's left brain, childhood, trauma, all of it. You know, just like, what are you doing? They're gonna lock you up if you talk about it.
Right? Oh, I've so been there. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And now I'm at a point where I'm like, let them find me, whatever. You know, where it's like, you know, things that I would share today on Facebook, right? For example, you couldn't catch me caught dead because and it's so funny how it shifts too, Mykal, because at one point, like, I was in the shoes of those people where I was looking at people going, you're crazy.
Right?
You know,
absolutely.
Yeah.
And this
now
is
like
what a valuable lesson for you.
Yeah.
Because doesn't it shifts how you perceive other people. You're like, that was me just a few years ago. Maybe have a little more compassion for people who haven't made the discovery.
Yes.
And you know, not everyone's meant to have the discovery. You know, I will share something that came through, and I don't remember where it came through from, that we are definitely on the ascension path. Everybody on this earth, though, how do I want to say it? So everybody, through their higher self, determines whether they want to ascend now on the current timeline that we are on this experience that the earth is going through, going from 3D to 5D. Their higher self knows whether they want to do this for real. And I will share that not everyone on this earth has signed up to ascend. There is a percentage that are going, you know what, I'm good right now. I don't need to ascend. I'm not ready to ascend. And this is from the higher self level, right? And they're the people that are obviously not awake at the moment.
Okay, I was going to say.
At a soul level.
That way?
What's that?
I was going to say, hold on a minute. So can I be like, brain saying yes, but like higher knees like, oh no, you're not going.
No, because you're hungry for the information.
Okay.
They're not hungry for the information because it's not their path.
Oh, okay. I see what you're saying. Okay.
So that's why it's important not to try to force feed it to them. If they're on the path, their higher self will find them the food. So there are some that are just not going to go the ascension path. There are some that are there. They're like the doorway. It's open. We're just waiting for the energies to really line up and we're good. And then there are some that have work to do. There's some that have to work on the emotional, especially the emotional stuff that is, stuck in their energy fields. We have an emotional body, a physical body, a mental body, and a spiritual body. Some people call it astral body. And within those bodies, we have all this stuck energy that just isn't going to serve you in the 5D, that really your role right now is to work through that, which is what you did yesterday. You looked at it. You're like, what the hell? Where'd this come from? Why do I have it? And we talked through it. And by the end of it, how did you feel? I mean, from the beginning to the end, where were you when we first started the call to the end?
Verge of mental break to, okay, good, that's gone.
Right? So it's not that tough. It's just we're not taught how to do it.
Yeah. It's the self-talk. Let me ask you a question. I want to kind of add this one in here because you just mentioned something that kind of triggered a thought in me. So do you know what's your take on, say that there's those of us that have worked hard for this, physically, consciously worked hard for this, right? Because all of us, I'm sure, have worked towards this, but consciously, the ones that are talking about this, that are ready for this, okay, what about the ones, say you're married to one that's just freshly awakening or intends to awaken, but it's like is getting there, is there will there be, we won't be able to be together, or do we wait for them to get there? I mean, have you heard any information about that? That's a really big.
I love that question because I have asked that question. I had a client one time who had a beautiful connection to his higher self or part of his team that was beautiful at answering those kind of questions and talking about the new earth. And I was asking him that same question. I was like, all right, so if someone's married and one person is going into that 5D and that other person is, maybe they're going to stay in 3D, what happens? How does that evolve in their day-to-day life? What does that look like for them? And this is the answer I got. So I'm just sharing what was shared with me.
Okay.
And I've actually had it validated by another higher self because I asked again, I love asking the higher self, what's your take on this? Because higher selves are also different. They all have slightly different takes about things. What I was told was, so you have a man and wife in 3D and the shift happens at a 3D level. Okay, and then the wife is going to go into 5D, right? She's ready to go in 5D, and the husband is obviously a 3D guy. At a 3D level, the 3D man perceives that his wife dies.
I've heard this. Oh, I got chills. I've heard this.
And he goes on with his life in that 3D realm. And I was like, okay. So, but what about the 5D wife now? And they said at every soul level, there is an aspect of that husband who is at 5D. And it's going to be perceived from the wife's point of view that the 3D husband all of a sudden has all these spiritual enlightenments and goes, oh, no, I get that. Oh, yeah. And it looks like he's catching up. That it's almost like a different aspect of his same soul, but at a 5D level, rushes in to be with her at a 5D level.
Wow.
So that their life continues on together. How mind-blowing is that?
Yeah, hold on a second. That's so so many questions here. Oh my God. But to not even, I mean, not really though, because I guess, you know what? Both people, I guess it really does illuminate the idea of the old earth and the new earth, because, you know, he would suffer the 3D guy would suffer the thought or the acknowledgement that in his mind, you know, or whether it truly physically did or not, that she died, you know, which is very traumatic to lose a spouse, I can imagine. But then
this is a beautiful thing that I like pointing out is we can never judge what's really going on, even with death. Because in reality, she didn't die.
Yeah.
She evolved.
Yeah.
And what I really want to point out on this too is we get so caught up in thinking that shifting into 5D, that this ascension path is going to be a very profound, like going into a different world. But my perception is it's going to be just another day. And it's not to say that you're not going to have some amazing aha moments. You might have some amazing spiritual interactions, but your day-to-day life is going to be the same. You're still going to have a house. You're still going to have a husband. You're still going to have to get the laundry done. You're still going to have to make dinner. That process of going from 3D to 5D, it's a very natural process. And it's not one where the 5D wife is going to notice that she has a different aspect husband. If she's awake enough, you'll probably see how he shifts and changes and maybe becomes interested in things he never became interested in before. But it's not like she's going to say goodbye to the 3D and welcome in the 5D guy. This is the same husband day in and day out. He's just growing kind of like she did.
That's why I'm saying it's such a cool thing, because she you know, what would be the difference? It's still an aspect of him. It's still him in her mind, and it is still him. But that is so cool. So let me ask you this. I don't know if you've ever asked this question before, but I'm sure a lot of moms would like to know this. What about our children? You know, because what I mean by that is we all have children at different ages. You know, I have a baby that's 6 months old, and I have a son that's 4 years old, whom you've met, and he has a little bit of, you know, I can tell there's some things with him a little unhealed. And my middle daughter too, but the baby, I get this sense of, you know, if there's any truth in these, you know, rainbow children, I mean, she's just so pure love and light. I mean, you met her actually.
Right.
And so with her, I don't even question it. I'm like, she's already there, you know, she was born there, you know. But like, what about the child that has to still go through his process of healing and discovering himself and all that? I mean,
yeah. You know, they again are led by their own higher self. They're also have you interacting with them. And well, think about your son, right? He was having some issues, and we found the solution because you called me, and I was like, wow, I feel like I need to see him.
Yeah.
Right. And I'll let you explain to them what happened.
You can share, or I can definitely share too. I'd love to. You know, he was having issues because he was having night terrors, and I did the whole read online, and everything said, oh, they'll grow out of it. And as a mom, I'm like, no. First of all, as a skeptic of anything that I read online, and knowing that there's more to us than just what the medical field says, I was like, no, this isn't just a thing that happens, you know. And I knew there was something not right, and so we brought him in, and I did, you know, you worked with the dragons, and you did.
And how easy was that session with him? Like, we didn't do anything other than play.
It was so amazing, because my son is usually so talkative, and you saw him at the end. After it was over, you saw him come out, and he was running around, he was touching everything, and but he was so, I mean, he didn't speak the whole time, and it was almost like you were just working with what was in here. I mean, and I was in
And
awe.
it wasn't like we were talking to one another.
It was
playing.
telepathic. Yeah.
That's right. It was just through intention, through telepathy, through just giving intention. And it was your intention. It was my intention. And all he did was show up. Right.
Yeah.
And how easy was that to shift? I mean, where did he go from to,
Yeah. Because we haven't had one since. I mean, we haven't, and that was what, months ago?
And that's the perfect example of, these new children, is they can shift things in just like that. I can facilitate the session, but they're so easy to they're just like, oh, okay, I don't need that. It's done, gone, bye. So they're guided by their higher self, but they're guided by you and your higher self. And you find the resources come to you if you're in that flow, as you are in that flow. And just as the 5D wife goes into 5D and the 5D husband is there, your children will be there. There is no doubt your children will be there. This is just another day. These children are meant for the 5D. They were born for this.
Yeah, that makes me feel that makes me feel like better, but I feel that what you're saying is the correct. So I guess that does make sense, and I do remember reading in, I think it was one of the Dolores Cannon books, about that the children were going to be born already adjusted.
Well, already. I think the children are actually way more adjusted for 5D than 3D. Like, they have a hard time in 3D. 3D doesn't make sense to them.
They do, and that's what's shifting our parenting style. That's what's forcing us.
Yeah. So they're fully prepared for 5D. It's the garbage in the 3D that they're not always prepared for, I don't think.
Okay, so that definitely I can live with those answers. Yeah. That makes me feel just good, because that's all you really think about is, okay, your immediate, my spouse, my kids, is my dog coming, just...
Yeah, right. Hey, it's getting late.
Yes.
Let's finish this up with, I always like to pull an oracle card. So let's finish this off with a little Kuan Yin oracle card and see.
Okay.
No, I'm not feeling Kuan Yin. I'm like getting Ganesh again. Ganesh just wants to run the show today.
I was going to say, seems a little bossy, huh?
He can be. With my little Ganesh.
I love Ganesh. Elephants have always spoken to me, so maybe that's why. Maybe it's me.
I just love him to itsy bitsy pieces. And he has a little mouse at the bottom of his thing. That's something, I think the mouse represents our runaway thoughts, like the things that get away from us.
That would make sense.
Isn't that funny? Yeah. I love how symbolic everything is. I never realized when I was younger, when I was in my black and white stage, how everything is really truly symbolic. It's nothing is really, really literal. And once I realized that it's all about symbology and you have to look for the underlying meaning behind it more than the literal, it's become easier.
Yeah.
Right.
And the connectedness too.
So Ganesh, you want to give us a card to finish out this very fun time that we have had. How are you doing?
I'm good. I feel great.
Okay. Joy.
I love it.
Didn't I say we were going to go play? Just like kids.
Yeah, I love it.
And so I love this because it has a saying, the mouse was a representation of our runaway thoughts. And when I look at him, it's like he has been, I don't know if I want to use the control isn't quite the right word, but it's like he's been taken into, he's serving him instead of running away from him.
Yeah.
Right? The brain has its purpose. It's not that it's bad. It just needs boundaries. And this mouse looks like he has been informed of his boundaries, and he's in service to Ganesh, who is dancing in joy because the runaway mouse isn't going crazy with the crazy thoughts anymore, right? Now
Wow.
he can live in his I am, and the I am goes, let's dance, let's wear crazy glasses, let's get together and enjoy one another. I just
That's
love
awesome.
it. So enjoy. I want to thank you so much, Corrina, for participating in this exchange today and allowing your voice to be heard through this this channel. And I know that everything you have shared today is such a benefit for everyone, because it just makes us feel less alone, because we are all going through this. Everything that you have talked about going through, I have gone through, and I know there's so many other people going through it also. And when we come together and we see that we're not alone, it's just so much easier to bear the journey.
Yes.
And I'm feeling like it's just remembering the I am, about the center point, about going in there and just resting in our own space, acknowledging ourselves, and then you can face anything.
Yeah. I feel I don't even have any more questions to ask. I just feel so I
And
feel so
everyone, that's amazing, because she's full of questions. That's why she's here. We have exhausted her. Yes.
for now.
Done our job. So, you've done beautifully. And I truly appreciate and value your questions, because I know that everyone has these questions. Yeah.
I think so too. And I'm so grateful that you took the time to answer these questions for me, and on multiple occasions do so, because it really helps. It helps me be at peace, and it helps the people that that look to me for guidance sometimes, just like I look to you or I look to other people for guidance. So it's like this chain that we all kind of do.
Right.
It helps me to pass that along, and vice versa.
Yeah.
And I love that. And I love this, not to be cliche, but this like circle of life where we're all giving to each other and we don't even realize it.
I love that too. I really do feel like that's what sustains us, right? This should not be a lonely journey.
No,
Yeah.
It shouldn't. And it doesn't have to be, and it's not.
Thank
So much, Mykal.
Namaste. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you for joining us, Corrina. Thank you for everyone else who gets to listen to our craziness in this time. And hopefully maybe we'll have Corrina back again sometime to ask questions.
I would love to.
Yay.
Have a great night. Bye, everybody.
Bye.